Okay, welcome to the Edlo podcast again. Um, First, I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who has supported the podcast thus far. I think I don't know if it's 9 or 10 months in to doing this podcast, and it has really caught steam. And I feel like we've done a lot of good, and I've had a lot of really interesting guests. And we've seen a lot of improvement. I think this month, if everything finishes up the way it's been going, I think I'll have seen another 35 or so percent increase in downloads on Apple and Spotify, Google, all those fancy places. And I've seen massive subscriber growth in on YouTube as well. And so I appreciate everyone who has supported this venture of mine. It's fun, and I'm not done yet. I've got a lot of really cool stuff in the works, from wrestlers to motivational speakers. I've got a sex worker coming on. I've got some WWE Hall of Famers that potentially will be showing up as well. Actors I've been talking to, so stay tuned. We got a lot more fun, excuse me, fun stories coming up. And so, but I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who's been following along. It's been a lot of fun learning from all of these people. So, anyhow, I posted out on Instagram and Facebook, and you can follow the Edlo podcast on both of those, as well as I think I'm on TikTok as well. Um, I asked if anybody had any questions because I was going to do another Just Me podcast, and I got a whole slew of questions that I have listed here. So let's start. Okay, so all right, so number one, one listener asks, "Have you ever had any surgery?" No, I can't say that I have. Knock on wood, I've been able to avoid surgery. I think the closest I ever came to was getting some staples in my head as a result of a brush with a garbage can that was thrown at my head, and that's a story. You had to be there. Looked great on film, but other than that, I don't think. Yeah, I've never had any surgeries at all, other than maybe my own personal surgery on ingrown toenails. So, next question: How do you feel about COVID? Um, is that still a thing? I don't know. It just seems like it's kind of another flu now. I don't know how to answer that question. It's really broad. I don't know quite what's being asked. I don't. I was worried at the beginning, just like everybody else. I caught COVID. It was very minor. My kids caught it as well, and it was fairly minor for them as well. I did get the vaccine and both doses with Pfizer, and I didn't have any problem doing that. And I'm not pro-vaccine or anti-vax. I don't do a flu shot, but I do get the other vaccinations that I'm supposed to get. Um, you know, and but I haven't done. I think I might have done one booster, but I haven't done anything since. And I just yeah. So I think the COVID thing is really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of research that really needs to be happening, and some investigation needs to happen to what exactly caused COVID. I think it's really interesting that the backstory seems really interesting. I do find it kind of odd that some of the people who at one point were heralded as kind of lunatics and spreading misinformation have proven to kind of be accurate in some of the things that they said. But at the same time, also, I know people who got really, really, really sick. In fact, I'll let you in a little story. There was someone who wanted to come on my podcast who did a documentary to suggest that COVID didn't even really wasn't even a real thing. And I just said, you know what? It's probably better that we don't do that because I do believe it's a thing. I know people who are nurses who had to sit there and watch people die at the beginning. So it's very much a real thing. And so I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. Um, Anyhow, who is your last Instagram search? That is a good question. Let's see. Who was last? Michael Gregson, good friend of mine, been on the podcast. He was my last Instagram search. I think I looked him up because he every once in a while will post some funny dad jokes. So I was trying to get some fodder to hit my daughters with. How many hours of sleep did you get last night? Probably 4.5 hours. Yeah, yesterday was a long one for me. Um, I had a mediation on a case in Oakland that was in person. And then from there, drove straight to Toyota Amphitheater to see Foreigner live. And by I say Foreigner, I use that loosely because as I got there and they came on stage, I realized there was not a single original member on the tour. They used to have Mick Jones, who was the lead guitar and the creator of Foreigner, and but he selects what shows he's going to come to, and he didn't select that one. So there was literally not a single original member on there, but still a good time. Anyhow, okay, what is your favorite Rocky sequel and why? Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know. I love them all for so many different reasons. Even Rocky 5, which I do admit is probably a major step below all of the other Rocky movies. And I'm not including Creed movies in this. This is specifically Rocky sequels. Creed is awesome too, but I consider that a separate franchise that's just kind of a part of the universe. So I love them all for all sorts of different reasons. Um, if I had to choose right now, oh, sorry. What I was saying, Rocky 5 is a step below all of the rest of the sequels, but it's still entertaining. It's just not as good as the rest of the Rocky movies. So, but I love them all for different reasons. I think if I was going to choose one, okay, I'll do it this way. If we're talking about just straight up rewatchability or the one I watch the most, I probably have watched Rocky 4 more than any of the other ones. It's just so awesome. Ivan Drago, and it's just the epitome of 80s. It's just really great. But I think if I was going to say which one is the best sequel, I think Rocky Balboa. I would say that is the best of all the sequels. Um, it was the one that got closest to the feel of the original. So if you haven't seen Rocky Balboa, you should because it's really, really great. Thoughts on the next season of Cobra Kai? I don't is the writer's strike causing that to not come out? I don't know if that had any effect on Cobra Kai. I'm excited for it. It's the last season, so hopefully they tie everything up. They left a good cliffhanger in the last season. I'm sad that it's ending, although I think that they've gotten to a point where it needs to end. The universe has just gotten so big that I think it's starting to get a little too much and it's hard to follow everybody and getting a little out of control and silly. But at the same time, it's great. I mean, like if you're a Karate Kid fan, this is I've said this before. I really hate how Hollywood has taken my childhood and kind of pillaged it for gain. And they just put out like these garbage sequels to movies that I'm super excited for, and I'm always really let down. Cobra Kai is the first, I think, the best throwback to an 80s film that I've ever seen. And I mean that. I mean, it's so well written. It's obvious that the creators and directors and writers are fans, and they've taken a lot of time and put a lot of respect on it. they just did a fantastic job. So very excited for it. Okay. You mentioned you'd attend the Beckham swinger party in your last question answer podcast. Would you consider Brangelina's swinger party? Uh, so that's Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. I don't think they're even together anymore, right? So that wouldn't happen. Not that I would actually get invited to the Beckham swinger party. But no, no, I've made it clear. No, it's Beckham's. Okay, there's got to be a line, and it's Beckham's. Okay, and by the way, that Angelina Jolie. Let me tell you something about her. Okay, that woman stole Brad from Jennifer Aniston. That is not okay. Not a fan. I don't care how hot you are and how piercing your eyes are. Okay, you are an evil temptress, and I don't appreciate it. Okay, next. All right. Uh, this is the same question. No, you mentioned you did. This is the same question. You mentioned you'd attend the Beckham swinger party in your last question answer podcast. Oh, what about Benifer's swinger party? So that's Ben Affleck and Jennifer. Um, is that Jennifer Lopez or the other Jennifer Garner? No, I can't go. No, okay. Here's the thing. Funny story. A lot of times I've gone places and people have told me I look like Ben Affleck. I don't see it. I don't see it at all, but I've heard it, so I just have to say I can't go to a swinger party with Ben Affleck. We get confused, it'd be weird. I can't. I know. So no. And by the way, like I said, there's a line somewhere and it's the Beckhams. Okay? That's it. And I'm only going, I just want to make it clear, only going just to see who's there and to not be rude to David and Victoria Beckham. Okay, that is the only reason why I would consider going. I'm not going to swing. I'm just going to come with a fruit basket and say my hellos, find out who's there, and just be grateful. Okay, so um, another one. You mentioned you'd attend the Beckham's swinger party in your last question answer podcast. Hear me out. What about a couple of hookers that look like David and Victoria Beckham? Okay, I know who this is. Uh yeah, no, I'm not going for the wish.com Beckham swinger party. Okay, it's got to be authentic. Give me a break. Okay, we can't be doing that. No, we're not doing that weird, the makeshift off-brand Chinese made swinger party. No, I want authentic David and Victoria Beckham there, okay, in all their glory. Okay, no more questions about swinger parties. What is your favorite recent memory? Um, that's a good one. I've had a lot of really good memories lately. Um, I think my favorite recent memory was probably going to a Giants game with my family. And so all the kids were there, and it was just, uh, you know, I had a great time just taking my kids, and it was just a lot of fun. I had a great time with them. Had something I haven't been able to do for a long time, and I was just grateful for that. So I think that's it. And this will be after it happens, but I'm recording this right before I'm going to make another memory. I'm taking my boys and I'm taking them down to Los Angeles to see two Metallica shows and possibly a trip to Disneyland as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to making more memories with them. And those are my favorite memories, like the ones that are, that are going to be lifelong memories that hopefully they can carry with them. So, um, okay, next. Why do lawyers talk so much? We don't talk, we pontificate. Okay, it's a little different. And you should listen. if we're being honest, okay, you should listen to what lawyers say, because if you don't listen to what lawyers say, you get in trouble. That's how you do it. Okay, ask any criminal who didn't listen to their lawyer. Okay, so I shouldn't say that. There are some bad criminal lawyers out there, but I'll leave it at that. Okay, next. Why doesn't my crush like me back? Well, I don't know who you are. It could be a number of things. Perhaps, you know, I don't know. Perhaps you haven't showered much. You kind of smell different. I don't know. Um, no, it's funny. It's kind of this thing. It's interesting. I try to give my he has a girlfriend now, so I don't really have to give him much advice on dating because he's spoken for. But I've talked to my son quite a bit about this whole idea, and I've told him, I was like, isn't it interesting that on most occasions it's the person that you're really into isn't into you, but then the person that you're not interested in is always interested in you. And I told him that, and I go, and here's the reason why that is, because it's all about, there has to be some level of ambiguity and chase. And some people are going to hate that I say this thing, like, oh, we don't want to play games and blah 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 blah. But here's the thing, hear me out, okay? There's a reason why that happens. There's a reason why it happens. And so, I tell them, I'm like, you don't want to make yourself too available, all the time. Maybe your crush is just, maybe you're coming on a little too strong. Or maybe you're just not compatible, and it's okay if they don't like you back and they've made that clear. Move on, because I'm sure there's somebody out there that likes you. I had this conversation with Austin and his buddies years ago when they were just starting to kind of get into high school, and there was a kid there, and he was like, "Listen, they were all making fun of this one kid because he was just so awkward around girls." And I remember asking him, I'm like, "So why are you awkward around girls? What's the problem?" And he goes, "Well, I just I get nervous." And I was like, "Well, what are you nervous about?" And he goes, "Well, I don't want to get rejected." And I told him, I go, "Hey, listen, here's the thing." I go, "There's a couple of things. First, um, there's like 7 billion people in the world, all right, and half of them are women. So that's 3.5 billion. Okay, so 1% of of 3.5 billion is 30.5 million. So that means if 1% of women find you attractive, there are 30.5 million women out there that would find you attractive. There's got to be at least a few in your area. Okay. So there's that. And so the other thing is also, um, you this fear of rejection. And I kind of flipped it on him because I said, okay, so what do you think the worst is that's going to happen? And this kid said, he goes, well, I could go over there and I talk to him, and then, then they reject me. And I go, okay, that's true. Uh, and, that's true. That could happen. In fact, I would say if you try this enough, it's almost certain to happen once or twice. But that's, I don't think, the worst thing that could happen. I think the worst thing that could happen is that you get scared and you don't go over there and talk to that girl, and that girl was your soulmate and you missed it because you were scared. So I don't know if that helps you, because I don't know who your crush is and I don't know who you are. It could be a number of things. It may not just be in the cards. But if you haven't told your crush that you're into them, and you haven't made it clear, then you should do that. And if they don't reciprocate, then you should move on. And if they do, good luck. Okay, next. Have you ever gotten into a fist fight? Yes, I have. I've been in a few. And um, I think that there's it depends on what you're talking about. I've been in a few actual just fights, but then also when we were kids, UFC was like just starting to get big, and it was just starting. I mean, it wasn't even really big yet. Um, so it was just starting to like kind of become prevalent, and we were doing like these underground fight clubs, and so yeah, it didn't get too bad. There wasn't a lot of striking involved, but when I was about 17, 18, every once in a while we would get together and we'd fight each other. So yeah, a couple different situations like that. Okay, next. How does it feel to have a kid who's a senior in high school? That is very surreal. Um, it's like it's both exciting and it's also terrifying. Um, I knew this day was coming. You know what I mean? I could see it coming, and um, I love him to death. He's just so great. I'm proud of the kid he's becoming. But it just to me as this year started, it just reminded me that my time with him in this phase of life is almost over. Um, and that's both really exciting because I'm so excited to see what he does with his life, but also a little sad because he's moving into an area of life where he doesn't necessarily need me. And like, not that he doesn't need me, I'm sure he'll always need his dad, like I still talk to my dad about things, but like it's just not the same relationship. He's an adult and he makes decisions and he has to decide what he's going to do with his life, and it's just a different phase. This is something I've said, I think, in the past, and I'll say it again. The weirdest thing about being a parent is that you're not just a parent for like one kid. Like your kid is like 1,000 people over the course of its life. Like you go from a baby to a toddler to a little boy to a big boy to a preteen and then a teen and then a young man and then he's a man. I mean, like I'm looking at a 6'3" man, you know, and you just the thing that stinks is that, like I've been lucky in that I've loved every phase of every one of my kids' lives, some more than others, but I mean I've generally just absolutely loved my kids. The problem is that when you're with them day to day, you don't really notice the transition. So then one day you're looking at this new kid or this new person. You have to adjust to this new person, and you never got the chance to say goodbye to that old person that you really, really loved. And it's amazing, but it's also sad at the same time because now he's gonna go to college and he's gonna go on a mission and he's gonna go off and he's gonna get married and he's gonna have kids and he's gonna be in life. And it just, it's I have a hard time letting go. And so but I have to, and I'm ready for it, and that's why I'm trying to spend as much time as he'll allow me to have in this last year. I'm trying very hard to give him his space to go out and have a great year with his friends and all these people. I just hope he lets me be a part of it in some small way. Okay, next. How are you feeling today? Smiley face. Um, I am tired. I am tired. And it's not just like a sleepy tired, although that is a part of it. It was a long day yesterday and it's been a long few weeks. I'm prepping for a trial right now, and There, it's always all hands on deck, and it's hard, and I love it. I love doing it, but it's a grind. But but it's not just that; it's just emotionally and just like just I'm tired, and so and just mentally tired because it's just in it just it's just always going, and you know, but that's okay. You just keep going through it. This is life. You sleep when you're dead, and you just keep on keeping on trying to just keep on trying to get everything done that you need to get done. And I've also come to realize and accept that I'm not going to get everything done. That's okay. It doesn't all have to be done. Things will work out. You just got to prioritize. Okay, next question. How are you doing really? Um, I'm doing amazing and I'm doing terrible. Um, there are a lot of great things in my life to be grateful for. And there are also some really, really hard times. And, you know, it's stressful. It's stressful. Um, but the trick is you can't let that stop you from doing the things you want to do. You can't let that stress and the worry and the anxieties of life just bog you down. You have to actually achieve. And I think that's the difference between success and failure a lot of the times is it's those moments when nobody's watching and nobody necessarily believes and everyone would understand why you'd quit, but you just don't. Those are the moments that make the difference between winning and losing a lot of the times because you know you can't give up. So that's the last question. So I appreciate everybody who sent something out for me to answer. I had two kind of long form letters or emails. I don't know what you call them. I mean, they came through Facebook, so it doesn't really. I guess it wouldn't be a letter. Does anybody send letters anymore? I don't even know what the cost of stamps are. Being honest. Uh, anyway, okay. So here's the first question, or message. Josh, I'm really enjoying the podcast. I like the variety of topics you have, but I noticed you don't have a lot of attorneys on. I figured you would have more attorney content on your podcast, so I decided to write to you here. I was in a car accident not too long ago. Oh, you're right up my alley here. This is good. Let's hear it. Okay. Why didn't you call me? Anyway, all right. I was hit on the driver's side of the car by someone who ran a stop sign. I felt my neck stiffen up at the scene, but I did not go to the doctor that day. Now my neck has gotten worse. The other person's insurance fixed my car and tells me they will take care of my injury, but they are really hard to get a hold of. I did not want to get an attorney because I'm not really the type to sue anyone. I was just wondering if you could provide some general advice for me. Well, I can't uh, because that just doesn't give me enough information to give you specific advice for your situation. But I will give you some general advice just right off the bat. And I'll just start by saying this. I would say 9 out of 10 people that come into my office and sit down with me for their first intake say exactly what you said in this. I not the suing type, or I don't want to be that guy. Um, and I'll tell you, that one always gets me because nobody is the suing type. I have prosecuted cases that's value is $2,500 up to about $10 million. Okay, that's the range over the course of my career, and I can tell you that I'm pretty sure that every single one of my clients would give every single dollar back that they got out of their judgment, settlement, whatever it was, to have not gone through the car accident. So it's not like anyone comes in here thinking they hit the lottery. Okay. Um, they come in here because exactly what you just said. The insurance company is hard to get a hold of and they don't want to help you. Now, this may come as a shock to you. Those insurance companies don't care about you at all. And I'm not just talking about the other person's insurance company. Your insurance company doesn't care. Yeah, they'll fix your car, they'll fix your property damage, they'll fix it really good, but and they'll do it really quick most of the time. But I'll tell you what, if there's a way that they can shirk a responsibility of paying out on a personal injury claim, they will take every step to do that. You have 2 years. I think you said, if I read this back, it said it wasn't too long ago. I don't know what that means. You have 2 years from the date of a collision to file a complaint in the court, unless it's a public entity. If it's a public entity, typically you have to do a government claim form within 6 months of the incident. And then if they deny the claim, you have to file a complaint with the court in a certain amount of time after that. And I will tell you, and I think it's 6 months or maybe it's 4 months from the date of the rejection, and they reject every single one. Okay, so uh, so those are the statutes. Okay, and I'll tell you, they may tell you, oh, we're going to take care of your injury. I just had somebody call me not too long ago, and they called me and they said, hey, listen, there was this insurance company, and I treated for about 18 months. That I sent them, I told them I wanted to get it done. I sent them all my bills, and then they were like, oh, we're going to fix it, we're going to fix it, we're going to fix it. And then the day after the 2 year statute ran, they said, oh, we don't have to fix it. You didn't file a complaint, so too bad, so sad. And they sent these form letters that I'm sure she didn't read because they were just form letters that say things like, hey, by the way, you have a 2 year statute to file the complaint and blah 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 blah. And so they did all their due diligence, but yeah, they undercut her. And as far as getting an attorney, I would tell you the first thing is you should get an attorney. And that sounds very self-serving, I'm sure, because I am one, right? Obviously. Um, but the thing is that you have to understand most people who get in car accidents get in one, two, if they're really unlucky, maybe three, in their entire lives. But the adjuster on the other side is talked to 15 people just like you that day. So let's imagine that you play chess and you go to the park. You sit down with this chess player and you've never played chess before, or maybe you've played once or twice. Okay, and you sit down and you say, hey, let's play a game of chess. And the person playing chess on the other side has played 15 times a day, 5 days a week, and has for the last 10 years. You're going to lose that chess game. And it's not because you aren't necessarily smart or that you couldn't become good at chess, but you don't even know the rules. You don't know the strategies. That person does. Like, for example, you get in a car. I don't know what happened in your car accident, but I'm sure at some point you reported a claim to your insurance company. And I'm sure your insurance company was like, oh, well, give us a recorded statement. You are under no obligation to give them a recorded statement at all. And they'll do it under the guise of we're trying to help you out. But are they trying to help you out? Or do you have what's called underinsured motorist coverage? Which means that if you get hit by somebody with no insurance or not enough insurance to cover your claim, do you have insurance that would cover it? A lot of you do. And if you do, your insurance company knows that. They want to get all the information because they realize they may be at risk to have to pay out for your case if you got hit by somebody who doesn't have good insurance. And but they'll do it like, oh, we're trying to help you out. Or they'll do something like say, hey, here's what we're going to do to help you out. We're going to send you a medical release, okay? and you just sign it. Just sign it. Don't fill it out. Just sign it for us. And we're going to use that so that you don't have to pay for your medical records. We'll order them for you. And you're thinking, great, I don't have to go and get them. I don't have to do all this stuff. Well, understand that you have a right to medical privacy in California, okay? Which means that you don't have to disclose any of your medical history. Now, here's the thing: if you say have a neck problem, like it sounds like this person has, um, you open up the door. You can't claim a privacy right with regard to your neck, meaning they have a right to seek for care for a limited amount of time in the past, and it really depends case to case, but they have a right to pursue pre-existing care to your neck to see if you had a neck problem that maybe isn't necessarily uh, involved with this collision. So they have a right to explore the areas of the body that you put at issue in your case. But they don't get carte blanche to look at your entire medical record. So if you give them a release, they can go from birth to present. So you ever had anything weird and weird or uncomfortable? You ever had a woman issue, a woman's issue, with your gynecologist? You contract an STD, you have cancer, you have some mental health issues that you disclose to your doctor, a domestic violence dispute that you went to the doctor for. They get all of that because you signed a release and they just say all medical records from birth to present and they get it all. And I've had defense attorneys ask in a deposition a client, uh, tell me about your abortion. Now, of course, I nearly came over the table at him, but it's happened. So these are little things that insurance companies will do to get information that they're not entitled to. They'll ask you for your social security number. You're under no obligation to give them your social security number. And here's why they want the social security number. They'll say they're doing it for Medicare, but they're doing that because there's an index out there that they all pay into, and they log every claim, work comp, car accident, anything you've been involved in. And they want to put your social security number in there and they want to find out everything they can about you. They'll follow you. They'll look at your social media. They'll look at anything that you post. I had at a trial one time a defense counsel for State Farm, which is not my favorite. Uh, I had a client who was hit pretty big impact, and she ended up with what's called thoracic outlet syndrome, which basically means the little area in there between their clavicle and their first rib, it pinched in a little area called the brachial plexus, which caused some radicular pain into her arms and weakness in her hands. She ultimately needed rib resections, meaning they needed to do surgery to remove the first rib on both sides of her body. And anyway, there was a little bit of an interval in between the collision and when her getting the surgeries because her and her husband had been trying to get pregnant for a long time, and they got pregnant, and so she had the baby, and that kind of put a gap in treatment for because they can't do any surgeries or injections or even MRIs, I think, when you have a baby or you're pregnant. So anyway, we get to the trial, and this defense attorney had pulled her maternity photos off of Facebook and said, "See, she's smiling, she's faking." Now, got an amazing verdict on that case, really hit them hard. But when I polled the jury after the fact, they said it had an effect. Um, so that's the type of stuff that insurance companies will do. So now the benefit of having an attorney is that they are not allowed to talk to you at all. So if you sign with me or anybody else, it doesn't have to be me. I hope you'd pick me, but uh, you know, you any attorney can send them a letter, and once they know you're represented, they can no longer talk to you. So it kind of takes all the legal stress off of you, so you can focus on what's really most important, which is just getting better.
Now, the other thing is that concerns me about this is you've done what a lot of plaintiffs or people who've been injured do that affect their case. Your neck stiffens up. You didn't go to the doctor. I don't know why. I have a lot of clients that won't go to the doctor. Maybe they don't have insurance, or maybe they don't have a big copay. They don't want to pay for the ambulance bill or the ER. Maybe they don't think it's that bad, so they don't want to go to the ER and sit there for a few hours to get an X-ray or whatever that's going to tell them that there's nothing wrong. Um, Maybe they're on their way somewhere, and so they couldn't just go to the doctor. All of those things happen. The problem is that if you have an injury, you need to treat. And I want to make it very clear. I am not saying that you need to go and get treatment for something that isn't there. If I'm just saying if you are hurt, you should go to the doctor. You should go and get it treated. Because otherwise what happens is you don't go to the doctor, there's a gap in treatment, and let's say you wait a couple weeks or a month. I had a client in a trial, waited 5 days. Didn't think it was that bad, so waited 5 days, and then and reported on the day of, she was going to a doctor's appointment, on the day of said she had some neck and back pain. Then waited 5 more days before she went back. And all the jury heard from the defense. What happened in those 5 days? Nothing happened in those 5 days. Now, another verdict. We win again, right? It was another win, and they didn't pay attention to that. But what about those 5 days? So imagine if you're a month out and you don't go to the doctor, which happens a lot in these cases. Then the insurance company has a gap, and they love it because then they can say, well, what happened? We live in a very judgy time. And everybody, the insurance companies have spent a lot of time convincing people that if they bring a lawsuit, they are that guy. And they've used things like the McDonald's verdict. Everyone's heard about that, the hot coffee verdict, and that what they think happened is some 90-year-old woman poured coffee on herself outside of McDonald's and got $1 billion. And that's just not true. It's just not what happened. But the insurance company uses that to poison the jury pools into thinking that everybody who comes in there is just out to make a buck, and that they just want to capitalize. They hit the lottery. And it's just not true. It's just not true. And so, but that's the world we live in. And so the insurance companies know that. The juries come in already suspect of my client. I mean, because a lot of the pain that people have, neck and back, is common in these types of collisions. You're probably not wearing a neck brace. You probably didn't have a neck surgery. You're probably not in a wheelchair. Okay, you just have some neck pain. But if I was to walk by you on the street and you were just walking by, I'd have no idea you were in pain unless you told me. So these juries are looking at you and thinking, I don't know what's wrong with them. And the defense wants to play on that. And one of the ways they do that is when you don't treat. Well, if it was really that bad, they would have gone to the doctor. And so, and I got to tell you, that's a hard one, especially for people like single parents, teachers, mothers, doctors, people who are highly, highly busy. It's very hard to get them to treat because it's a nuisance. They're so busy, they don't have time. So you have to go and get the treatment, because if you don't, one, there's a chance you're not going to get better, and that's paramount. You got to get better. The number one thing, forget lawsuits, is that you recover. The whole purpose of a claim is to put you back in the position you were before this happened. And if you were a 0 out of 10 before, then you should be a 0 out of 10 now. And if they can get you to get back to a 0 out of 10, you should take the opportunity. So I hope I kind of answered some questions for you there. So I would say, if I were going to say general advice, if you've been in a car accident, number one, if you hurt, you should treat. And everybody makes their own decisions. I would say if you're hurt at the scene, just to be safe, you should go to the ER and get checked out just to make sure there's nothing seriously wrong. I have had clients who waited and found out later that they had problems and ended up with emergency surgeries. And you just want to be better safe than sorry on that. If the pain continues, you should continue to treat, and you keep doing it until it is better. And once it is better, then you can go to the insurance company and try to get the case resolved. So there's that. I would also tell you that there's so much involved with a personal injury claim that I think an attorney is almost always it's almost always good to at least sit down and consult with one. And most personal injury attorneys will sit down with you for free for the first hour. So if someone comes into my office for a consultation, there's no obligation to sign up, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So at least you get the information and can make an educated decision on what you're going to do. So you're welcome if you want to. I know we're acquaintances, so if you want to contact me, you certainly can. Or you can talk to anybody, but whoever whatever you decide, I think you should talk to an attorney so that way you can understand all the specifics of your case. I hope that's generally good enough for you. And if anybody has any questions that want to follow up on this for another Just Me podcast, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to answer attorney questions. Maybe I don't have enough attorneys on here because I deal with attorneys all the time. And someone already asked, why do attorneys talk so much? It's a good question. I have to deal with them all the time, and it's exhausting sometimes. So anyway, okay. Last thing. So, Josh, I wanted to reach out to you and get your perspective. You've mentioned on your podcast and on your Facebook that you have learned to love your life, even the tragedies. You've also said that in times of faith versus doubt, you have just happened to always choose faith. I don't know if that's exactly what I said. But anyway, how is that possible? With so many bad things that happen with so many bad things that happen in the world. I've had a lot of difficulties in my life. I've had some seriously bad things happen to me. And I can't imagine why a loving God would allow that to happen, or allow them to happen. The bad things. Allow the bad thing. I guess allow the bad things to happen. Sorry. Why should I have faith in Him when He allows these things to happen to me? Or to other people in the world for that matter. And that's it. Well, I don't know. So I don't know what you're talking about as far as what your bad things are that happen to you. So I can't comment specifically. I wish there was maybe a little more detail here, so I could understand exactly what we're talking about the bad things that happen to you. But I can give you some general thoughts. And it's interesting because I just had a conversation with somebody else on this very topic. Kind of not exactly this, but I think it applies. Okay, so bear with me. So first thing, and I've thought about this a lot. Like, this is a question that lots of people have asked. Why do bad things happen to good people? Right? That's the question. I don't know all the time. We don't know everything. And that's the first thing we got to accept. We don't know everything. If God exists, we don't know all of His workings and how this all works. So that's the first thing. One thing I do know is that God has allowed us as humans to have free will. So, I am of the Mormon variety, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one of the concepts within this religion, but I think in many religions, is free will. Which means that includes the right for you to choose between good and evil. And that also means that everybody has the right to choose between good and evil, which also means that they have consequences for the evil. And sometimes, unfortunately, those consequences fall to you. When somebody does something wrong or against their morals or against, if you want to say, God's commandments in this context, uh, the consequences ultimately fall to you as well. So, but that doesn't make God bad. That makes the person who did whatever thing you're referring to bad, right? God isn't going to come and interject every time somebody does something wrong, like Minority Report and the precogs. Uh, those things happen, and there will be a judgment for those things. So there's that. And that doesn't give anybody comfort. I understand that. That's not something that's going to always help in these situations. But it's true if you believe it, right? That's a true concept. The idea that we are free to choose for ourselves. Um, so I wanted to share though, and I think this is kind of helpful, and maybe it won't be. Maybe it's not exactly on point, but regardless, I think it's helpful. So I was actually talking to a friend, and talking with the friend about just some stuff going on in my life. I was particularly frustrated. Like I said, I'm going through a trial, which is like a literal. I'm not talking like a trial of life. I mean like a literal trial. I'm prepping for a trial out of town, big case. Um, and so anytime that you're prepping for a trial, it's intense. Um, so it's an intense time, and on top of that, also, kids are getting back to school and trying to get everybody to their activities, and there's always somebody's having some sort of struggle that they need help with, and trying to be there for them while I'm also doing this, and trying to feed them and water them and make them clean, and you don't want the dirty kid in school that smells like BO, because you don't want them sending off random messages to a podcast asking why their crush doesn't like them, that type of thing, right? So anyway, so in the midst of this, though, I was sent a talk that was written on the topic, and with the permission of the writer, I am actually going to share a portion of this talk, which I thought was really thought provoking, and I appreciated when I read it. Um, so it says, let me see if I can find this part that I thought was important. It was all very good, but there's one part I thought was really important and applied to this. Pay close attention as I share with you the Bible Dictionary's definition of conversion. Uh, Conversion denotes changing one's views in a conscious acceptance of the will of God. If followed by continued faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, repentance, baptism in water for the remission of sins, and the reception of the Holy Ghost by the laying on of hands, conversion will become complete and will change a natural man or woman into a sanctified, born again, purified person, a new creature in Christ Jesus. Complete conversion comes after many trials and much testing. To labor for the conversion of oneself and others is a noble task. Did you catch what complete conversion comes after? Many trials and much testing. It goes on to say, brothers and sisters, my life has been full of trials and tests, but I am not unique in this regard. We all have many trials and much testing in our lives, and we will continue to have both of these throughout the course of our lives. It is through our many trials and much testing, coupled with our conscious acceptance of the will of God, that we become truly converted to the Lord. So I shared that with you because I know that the person who wrote this in comes from the Mormon tradition. I don't necessarily know if they're still active in that tradition, but I think that those things will resonate a little bit. But I thought that that was really profound. That it is through our trials and testing, coupled with our conscious acceptance of the will of God, that we become truly converted to the Lord. So when I said, and I don't think I want to make it clear in my last podcast, or when I said it on my podcast, um, where I said that I've learned to love my life, even the tragedies. I don't think I've learned to love the tragedies. I love the um, the consequences, the growth that comes from the tragedies. I I'm grateful for those things, but I think that that's what that comes from is a conscious acceptance of the will of God, which is not my own. And that's really, really, really hard. Like it's really hard. You have I do this all the time. I have a view of where I think life should go. And I don't think the podcast is going to drop yet before this one drops, but I did a podcast with a friend of mine, Jake Ballantyne, who's a motivational speaker and a success coach, and he's really profound. And he said something that really hit me. We were talking about this concept of trials, and he goes, the pain of a trial doesn't come from the trial. It comes from the feeling that you shouldn't be going through the trial. And the thing is that is so true. I'm guilty of this. I spend so much time thinking to myself, this isn't fair. I didn't do anything to deserve this. And that could be 100% right. I don't know anything about your situation. I don't know what it is that you're referring to as far as the bad things that have happened to you. But if I take it that it's true that bad things happened to you that you couldn't control, then you're right. Like it, you know, it's not fair that it happened to you. But conscious acceptance of the will of God is accepting that sometimes as part of his will and as part of free agency, bad things are going to happen. And those bad things, those tests, those trials help us grow into the better version, more empathetic, more Christ-like person that God wants us to be. I hope you don't think, like I said, if you're dealing with some sort of abuse or some sort of thing, I hope you don't take that as me saying it is God's will that you go through whatever it is that you're going through. I don't think that that's true, but I do think it's God's will that whatever happens to us, we learn from it. Some of the best therapists in the world went through unspeakable trauma. And they're good at it because they're empathetic, because they understand what you're going through. You know, some of my favorite people to talk to when I'm struggling are people that I know who have gone through what I've gone through and gotten past it, and hearing their perspective after the fact. It gives me hope. And they tell me how much they learned from it. So so why should I have faith in him when he allows these things to happen to me? Well, because you can trust that the atonement is going to work for you. And that all of this has to do with some plan that maybe you don't necessarily understand. I've said this 1,000 times. Every trial I've ever gone through, every single one, I can look back now and I can see how that trial needed to happen to put me in the place I am today. I am a much different person now than I was 5 years ago. I am very much, I think I was one of those judgy Mormon people. I mean, it's kind of weird to hear myself say that, but I think I was. Not all the time. I had friends in all sorts of different different viewpoints and things, but as far as I had very strong opinions on certain groups of people and what they were doing, and all of that stuff. And it wasn't until I started realizing that my life was not going to be the cookie cutter version of what a Mormon Christian life is supposed to be, and that there was going to be some differences for me, that I really started being more empathetic. And I can tell you from my own experience, like one of the things that has really happened for me out of all of my issues has been the budding closeness I have with my kids that I don't think I would have had otherwise. And so at any point you can look at your life, I believe, and you could look at, even when the worst things happen to you in your life, you can look, and I bet you can find a few things that are going pretty good. Um, so try to focus on that and have faith that things are going to get better, because they always do. And then they always get bad, and they always get good again. That's life. It's funny. I actually thought about this not too long ago, and this will be where I wrap up. So I was thinking about this. I kind of watched a movie, and there was an analogy, and it kind of made me think of this. So, uh, life is really hard sometimes, and then sometimes it's really great. And for some reason, I started thinking about when I was a little kid. I remember, I think this is the way it went, but I think it was my mom, took me on my first like real roller coaster. And it was at Six Flags Great America. It was called, I think it was Paramount's at that time, or it might have been Marriott's or something like that, Great America. But they had this wooden uh, roller coaster called the Grizzly. And it was the biggest roller coaster at the time. Like there were a bunch, they built a bunch afterwards, but this was it. The Grizzly roller coaster. And I was tall enough, and we were going to go, right? And so I get on that rickety roller coaster, and it just click, click, click going up. And then, we go down the first drop, and then we just go all over the place. And I don't remember how old it was. I couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old when I go on it. And like at that point in my life, there'd never been anything that made me feel so like, it made me feel both so like excited and scared and like sick to my stomach and anxious and thrilled all at the same time. Uh, and that's life, you know? That's life. It takes all these ups and downs, twists and turns you upside down. And some people don't like it. Some people just want to go on the merry-go-round, and that just goes around and around and around. But you know what? When I think about my children, and when I think about my loved ones, who I love very, very much, and I think about where my life is headed, and I think about my blessings, I'm grateful for the roller coaster. I like it. So, with that, I hope whatever I said helps. Um, it's never it's never meant to do anything more than that. So, well, that was it. I went an hour talking to myself. Why do lawyers talk so much? Well, pontificating. So, if you've gotten this far, I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are coming up on a year, and I've got a whole lot of cool things in the works. I got some more fun topics for you. So, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You can subscribe on YouTube, on Apple, follow on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google. There's a bunch of other ones I saw in my analytics. So you can do that. I'm grateful for all of you and all the people who participate. Um,
A couple other things I'm thinking about doing. I have thought about t-shirts, and I have thought about hats and stuff. I don't know. I haven't pulled the trigger on it. I don't know if anybody would be interested in it, but I think it would be fun to print up some stuff and just have some advertising. So that might be coming down the works. But right now, I'm just having a lot of fun doing this, and I appreciate you all coming along with me. Um, so if you ever want to have a question answered on one of these Just Me podcasts or in any other form that I do, let me know. As you can tell, I never divulge unless you specifically say you want me to. I will not divulge who you are. I will keep it between us. Um, and uh, and so yeah. Um, and no, I'm not going to any swinger parties. So anyhow, that's it. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.